Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wiggins 77. Thank you for joining us. Everyone is welcome. Today at Wiggins 77 True Crime, we're going to discuss the Delphi murder case. Just to refresh, as the jury selection is scheduled to begin October 14th. Not sure that will happen as this trial date has been moved multiple times, but just in case the trial does move forward, here are the very, and I mean very basic details of the case. Now, 13-year-old Abigail, also known as Abby Williams, along with her friend, 14-year-old Libby German, were reported missing the early evening hours of February 13th, 2017. The following day, on February 14th, 2017, the girls' bodies were discovered in a wooded area. The girls had been brutally murdered. What you're looking at was the official FBI flyer at the time of the investigation. So here is the basic timeline. So, top of the left side, you see where Richard Allen, who is the suspect on trial, going on trial, had parked his car, which was called at the time the old CPS building, which the building has since been demolished. You see, there is a path to walk from that car park to the Freedom Bridge. Now, this is the Freedom Bridge where four teenage girls were together leaving the park, where three of the four saw a man fitting Richard Allen's description. One of the girls took a photograph of the area at the time they saw this man they said was Richard Allen, which was time-stamped at 1:26 p.m. Okay, you see the path from the Freedom Bridge through the park to the Monon High Bridge. On the top right, you see the place that Abby and Libby were dropped off at approximately 1:49 p.m. Next is the approximate location along the path a witness saw Abby and Libby heading towards the Monon High Bridge. At 2:09 p.m., we have the last photo taken of Abby at the south end of the Monon High Bridge that was uploaded to Snapchat at approximately 2:09 p.m. Police released the clips of the bridge guy, time 2:13 p.m. Now, not certain about this time. We will discuss this later. Okay, middle right, you see the approximate location the girls' bodies were found on February 14th. So that's the very basic timeline. Okay, this is very sad that the two young ladies were brutally murdered, and unfortunately, this is going to be a very messy trial. There are a multitude of dodgy characters associated with the case, from the current judge, the prosecutor, to the Delphi Police Department, all of whom appear to be on a scale going from less than honorable to corrupt. The evidence in this case does not appear to support the arrest of Richard Allen, let alone a conviction. But lucky for Mr. Allen, which is very, very lucky for him, his defense team appear to be very honorable and very thorough folks, like lawyers. Like, these guys are going above and beyond to represent their client. So let's just take a quick overview of this case. The first timeline is the 1:26 p.m. There are four teenage girls at the Freedom Bridge. This is a picture of that area. On the top right of the picture, you see the trail that leads to that CPS parking lot where Richard Allen parked his car. Okay, so the teenage girls, one teenager said she didn't see any man. One of the teenagers told police the man she saw was wearing all black clothing. Two other of the teenagers, there was four of them all together, they were friends. The other two teenagers told police he was an older man wearing a blue coat, blue jeans, was not much taller than this particular teenager. I guesstimated about 5'10", but no taller than that. Richard Allen confirmed in his statement that he saw the teenage girls when he was leaving the park that day. Approximately 1:30 was the time he originally gave police back in 2017. Well, it really wasn't a policeman, it was a game warden, but we'll get to that. Okay, so here you see this is the spot that Libby's sister Kelsey dropped the girls off at approximately 1:49 p.m. This is also where witness Bibi, and I'm going to try to avoid using people's names here. So witness Bibi parked her car there as well. That's the same spot. Bit odd though, witness Bibi's vehicle is parked there at the time that Kelsey dropped Abby and Libby off, but yet Kelsey said she didn't see any other cars parked there. This is a very tiny area. Like you could maybe park 3 or 4 cars at the most. So I kind of don't understand why she didn't see the car there. But anyway, witness Bibi saw the teenage girls walking over the Freedom Bridge. Now this is the 4 teenage girls that saw Richard Allen. So witness Bibi was driving west along 300 North, traveling eastbound. Her vehicle was captured on CCTV passing the Hoosier Harvester store at 1:46 p.m. Okay, so this is the same camera that's going to capture Kelsey dropping Abby and Libby off as well. It's actually right across from the Little Mirrors parking lot on the south side of the West 300 North. Okay, so Bibi stated she parked at the small lot across from the farm, Hoser's Harvester store, and there was no other vehicles were there when she parked, so nobody else. She was just there on her own. So on the left, you see the north end of the Monum High Bridge. The first platform is where witness Bibi saw the poofy hair chap standing at approximately 1:50 to 2 p.m. Bibi described the man as slender, youthful, boyish, 20s or early 30s with brown poofy hair, no hat, wearing blue jeans and a blue jean jacket. Okay, the right picture is the composite sketch that police drew from witness Bibi's description of the man Bibi saw. Okay, approximately halfway between the north side of the Monon High Bridge and where Bibi had parked her vehicle, she passed 2 girls walking towards the Monon High Bridge. Witness Bibi's vehicle is then capped, and the 2 girls will turn out to be Abby and Libby. Witness Bibi's vehicle is then captured on the Hoser Harvester Store CCTV traveling westbound along West 300 North at 2:14 p.m. So she's left the park. Witness Bibi also drove past the CPS parking lot at approximately 2:14. That's after she passed the Harvest store. She did not see a black Ford Focus, but saw a 1965 Ford Comet that was not black in color. Now, I find Bibi to be a very reliable witness when you read through all her statements and all the all the things that Bibi did after the fact to try and get the police to investigate. Um, and her timeline is confirmed by the CCTV, like the security camera at the Hoser Harvest store. And I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly. And Bibi also doesn't allow law enforcement to influence her to change her description of the poofy chap who she saw, because what she saw doesn't fit the narrative the police had put out in the public. So good for her that she didn't allow the police to influence her and get her to change what she believes she saw that day. Okay, on the left of this picture you see, or screenshot, you see the north side of the Monon High Bridge where the girls began to cross. On the right is the last picture that Libby took of Abby on the south side of the Monon High Bridge at approximately 2:09 p.m. Okay, this is a screenshot of the south side of the Monon High Bridge. At the end of this bridge is actually private land. Actually, that whole portion of the bridge is on private land. Okay, the chain you see there with the yellow paper, it says on there, notice not to trespass. This was installed after the murder of Abby and Libby. There also is a surveillance camera, one or two of them on trees on the private land that cover this area. But sadly, those surveillance cameras, they had been broken by teenagers sometime prior to the murders. Okay, so if you look to your left, at the end of the wooden bridge is the area where it's down the hill. Okay, so this picture on the left screenshot is when you stand at the end of the south side Monon High Bridge, look left, this is what you see. Now, when you look down there, it's actually an easier descent and it's not as steep as it appears. The screenshot on the right is if you walked down that hill um, and you turned around and you looked back, this is what you would see. Across the private road, up the hill to this, and you would end up at the south end of the Monon High Bridge. And this area is not quite the way it has been portrayed. Apparently, this area is a local hotspot for teenagers and young adults to gather to drink, take drugs, and get up to all sorts. Uh, the area next to the bridge, but closer to the creek, it's littered with garbage, fire pits in various spots, appears to be a well-used area. Now, this isn't unusual in a small town where there's very little else for the young people to do, I suppose. But this is not some beautiful nature reserve down by the bridge in that creek, okay? It's a party place, and I think it's a place maybe for some homeless folks as well. Okay, so this is Bridge Guy. Clips from Libby's phone. The police say it's at 2:13. It's timestamp 2:13. Now, I have a lot of questions and opinions in regards to this Bridge Guy narrative. First, I think that when this gets to court, it will become apparent that the police have greatly altered the original video from Libby's phone. The audio sounds as if there are two different male voices attempting to be spliced into one single male voice, guys down the hill. This Bridge Guy video is not date or time stamped. How do we know that Libby didn't film this Bridge Guy on a different day at a different time? We have no idea. We will go into more detail in the next episode, but my question is, do you think the girls knew who this Bridge Guy is? And that is why they videotaped him? Because the way this has been portrayed and the actual way this video Bridge Guy is very, very different. I find it difficult to believe that Abby was holding her phone down, taping Bridge Guy secretly, as the police would like everyone to believe, as this video appears as if she's holding her phone straight up in front of herself like anyone would normally videotape. I personally do not believe anything that the Delphi law enforcement, prosecutor, even the judge, and have to say in regards to this videotape on Libby's phone. Someone must know who this chap is. In 2017, the total population of Delphi was 2,951 people, and 1,524 of that number were men, like males. It shouldn't have been difficult to find this chap or the poofy haired chap. Where did he go? And I think at the end of the day, through the trial, we'll probably most likely find out that this Bridge Guy is not Richard Allen. So this slide, Libby's father had arrived at the park at approximately 3:10 p.m. to pick the girls up. However, they were not at the agreed upon pickup spot, so Libby's father walked the trails in search of the girls, not finding them, then reported them missing at approximately 5:30 p.m. and the search began. Now, Libby's father did talk to some people on the trails. There is one person that's been referred to as the flannel shirt chap, and then there's the arguing couple, and I haven't included all that because this is just an overview of the most basics. Okay, so at 5:30 p.m., Libby's father reported the girls missing, and the search began. So volunteers assembled, the fire department people, all kinds of people assembled to try and find the girls. Okay, this photograph is the area where the girls' bodies were found at approximately 12:15 p.m. on February 14th, 2017, by a group of search volunteers. The group was searching in the woods. One of them saw two deer, then noticed the girls' bodies. Apparently, one of the people in the group was Abby's uncle. Now, I don't know that for fact, okay, but I've read that through documentations. When the group came upon the girls, they were covered in leaves and twigs. They removed the leaves to determine if the girls were alive, to check their pulse. Now, Libby was found at the base of a tree. Libby was positioned flat on her back with her left arm stretched above her head, touching the base of this large tree. Both of Libby's hands were covered in blood. Apparently, there were blood spots and blood drippings were seen all over Libby's body. She was completely nude. Libby's right arm was along the side of her body. There appeared to be no blood spray or dripped onto the leaves or the tree near Libby's head or the knife wound in her neck. There appeared to be evidence that Libby had been killed at a nearby tree. There was another tree that was very close by that had blood spray and blood at the base of that tree. So I don't want to get too graphic, but the neck wound that Libby suffered would have caused arterial blood spray. So Libby's clothing was found in the creek with the exception of one Nike running shoe, her panties, and one sock. Abby was found just a few feet away from Libby. Abby's legs just a few feet from Libby's legs. There were significant differences existed between how Libby's body was found and how Abby's body was found. Abby was fully clothed. No blood appeared to be on Abby's clothing. Abby's hands were clean, no blood. Abby's feet were clean, no blood. She had shoes on. She had her shoes on. Other than blood found around Abby's neck area where the fatal wound had been inflicted, very little blood was found anywhere else on Abby's body or clothing or on the ground. Abby was found on her back like Libby. Abby's elbows were bent with her right and left arms both near her chest. Abby's left hand actually and her arm near her left side of her face, and her right hand and arm near the right side of her face. Also, Abby's left leg was straight while her right leg was bent at the knee. Abby was found with her bent right leg under her left leg. Under Abby's left lower back, a shoe was found. This shoe is believed to be Libby's shoe. It was a Nike running shoe. Under the shoe, a cell phone was found. The cell phone was later determined to be Libby's phone. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but it has been mentioned that the coroner said that due to the wound to the neck that Abby suffered, it would have been a slow death. But that seems to contradict what was found at the crime scene, as the lack of blood would indicate that Abby's heart stopped pumping blood shortly after suffering the neck wound, if not like almost simultaneously. What is very odd is the police have put forth the narrative that Abby was found wearing Libby's jeans. However, the actual description of what Abby was found wearing is the exact description of the clothes you see Abby wearing in the last picture taken of her by Libby on the Monon High Bridge, which means Abby's clothes were never removed. Why are the Delphi police putting out all these false narratives? I don't understand the goal in that. How did Libby's shoe and cell phone end up under Abby? This would appear to indicate that Libby had removed her clothes, at least her shoes, prior to Abby suffering the neck wound. That when Abby was stabbed in the neck, she fell on top of Libby's shoe and cell phone. Would it be at that point that possibly Libby tried to run, the killer catching her near the tree close by where Libby suffered the neck wound? There was blood spray as well as evidence of a pool of blood at the base of the same tree. There were blood stains on the bark of the tree and Libby's blood, which would indicate that bloody Libby had very bloody hands. So by the evidence on her body, now I'm going by what the defense attorneys put in that memorandum. Okay, so somebody, and again, I really apologize for being graphic, but it's the only way to explain it. If someone slashes your throat, your first instinct is to put your hands up to where your throat is, right? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to stay alive. So that is how her hands would have gotten bloody because there was arterial spray. Okay, the amount of blood that was on her and on the tree and on the ground at the tree, it was pretty substantial. So her bloody hands. So the next thing is you become very lightheaded because the blood loss is quick. So of course you put your hand up to steady yourself, right? To prevent yourself from falling down. So of course she's going to get her bloody hand on the bark of the tree as she's trying to, support herself. Now that's, people are calling that an F on the tree. I don't subscribe to that theory. I think the poor girl, she was just trying to save herself from falling over by leaning against the tree with her bloody hand to try and hold herself up. So, um, so I'm thinking, if this killer, he would have got a substantial amount of blood on them. Like that's arterial spray. Even if the killer was stand behind her when he cut her throat, he's still going to get, he or she or whoever did it, is still going to get arterial spray on them. They'd get it up on their hand, up their arm for sure. Because if the throat slashing is as severe as been depicted, you're going right across somebody's throat. So if you hit the artery, it's going to spray from like your elbow down almost. Well, depending on how long the person's arm is. So another question I have is, was the shoe found under Abby wet? Like, was it damp, indicating that the girls had walked through the creek? Or were Abby's clothes damp? Or did the police put forth another false narrative? The killer forced the girls down the hill across the creek to the spot they were found. Like, I just find that so bizarre. The whole narrative by the police. I'm really curious as to see what the actual events were. The other thing is, why do neither of the girls have any defensive wounds? Now, I don't know this for a fact, but that's what's been stated in the defense memorandum, that neither girl had defensive wounds. So I'm just curious, Libby is nude, Abby is fully clothed, and neither girl has any defensive wounds. And there doesn't appear to be any indication other than Libby that Abby even tried to run. So it's very odd, very, very odd. So then, what? Apparently, the only DNA found on either victim was the DNA from one of the volunteer searchers that had found the girls because he had checked to see if they had a pulse. And the other was apparently, now I don't know if this is true, again, because none of this has been released. Apparently, Libby had some of her sister's DNA on her fingernails. Now, that would be normal. That would be normal, They were close, so that wouldn't have been unusual. But I find it odd there's nothing from the killer. So the other thing that's a bit odd is the killer put Libby's clothes in the creek. Okay, not realizing at the time the killer only had one shoe, which sort of indicates that he was in a hurry, as the killer didn't spend the time to look for Libby's other shoe. The killer took the time to put Libby's clothes in the creek to destroy any evidence. So at some point, while Libby was still clothed, the killer must have touched her clothing, or why would the killer bother doing that? The killer didn't take the time to undress Abby, put her clothes in the creek, as the killer most likely never touched Abby, other than to inflict the fatal wound to her neck. The autopsy report, like I said, has not been released, but it has been reported that the time of death was sometime prior to 3:30 p.m. Apparently, and I say apparently, there was no evidence of a sexual assault. Now, I have no idea if any of that information is accurate or not. Because again, you have to ask yourself, why is Libby nude if there's no sexual element to the crime? This person's using a knife to stab them? Again, very, very unusual. Okay, and allegedly found between the two girls, and I'm saying allegedly, between the two girls, buried under the leaves and dirt, was a single bullet. There's no photographic or video evidence of the bullet being removed from under the ground, as the bullet was buried. There is no telling how long that bullet was buried underground. This area is known for hunters. The bullet could have been dropped by anyone and over time became buried under the ground. Well, the crime goes unsolved for several years, and then out of the blue, the Delphi police arrest this chap. This is Richard Allen. He's the defendant in the case. How the police come to arrest this chap is still a mystery. Now, the evidence they have is he made a statement in 2017 after calling the tip line just after the discovery of the murders to let law enforcement know that he had been on the trail that day. Now, some folks find it odd that Allen would call the tip line, but when a crime occurs like this, the police always, like I've heard it dozens and dozens of times, say in a press conference, if you were in or around the area the crime was committed, please contact police. Because, they want to talk to as many people as they can, because you never know who might know something, but they don't realize that they do. So this wouldn't be unusual for him to call. I mean, that's perfectly normal. I mean, witness BB did, the teenagers did, well, the mother of the teenagers did. So it's not odd for Richard Allen to have done that as well. So I assume that is why he called, and others present on the trail, like I said, they all contacted the police as well. Richard Allen, Richard Allen was told to meet Dan Doolin of the Department of Natural Resources in a grocery store parking lot. Now, this I find so bizarre. This Delphi Police Department is the most peculiar bunch of police I think I've ever heard of. Who sends a Department of Natural Resources person to take a person's statement, never mind that, in a grocery store parking lot? Like, like that's just too bizarre beyond words. Like, I mean, do they not have an actual office building, the police in Delphi? I assume they do. Like, this is just too bizarre. Richard Allen told this Dan Doolin, the natural resource park ranger, I guess is what he really was. This is just as nuts. You have to laugh. It's so sad that this is how they conducted the investigation. It's actually very, maddening that this is how lackadaisia the Delphi police treated this horrific crime committed against these two young girls. This is horrific. This is the way they behaved. But anyway, that's how they behaved. So Richard Allen told Dan Doolin that he had arrived at the park at approximately noon, left the park approximately 1:30 p.m. He told Dan Doolin that he had run into several teenage girls on his way out of the park. He was watching the stock ticker on his phone. He said he parked his 2016 black Ford Focus at the old CPS building. Okay, so this is what he told this Dan Doolin, the park resource fella, back in 2017. So all of a sudden, fast forward to 2022, it's just before an election, apparently. And again, not being an American, I find it ridiculous that they elect their sheriffs, their judges, and their prosecutors. I mean, where are you ever going to get proper justice, fair justice, when you're electing people to these positions is beyond me. They should be career positions. Then maybe not so many innocent people will go to prison for crimes they didn't commit. Uh, so we fast forward to October 31st, 2022, and the police arrest Richard Allen. And they base this arrest on this statement to this Dan Doolin, the park ranger. I'm going to call him a park ranger. He's not a police officer, this Dan Doolin guy, a park ranger. So they arrest Richard Allen based on that statement. However, it should be noted that Dan Doolin's report has been called into question, as he had the name on the report as Rick Allen Whiteman. Now, the name was incorrect, so you have to wonder what else did this Dan Doolin put in there that wasn't correct. If he can't get the guy's name accurate, goodness knows what else he wrote. When they asked Dan Doolin if he recorded the interview with Allen in the grocery store parking lot, Dan Doolin said he checked his audio recordings, could not find the one for Richard Allen. Dan said, how convenient, eh? Dan said he would continue to look, as he is certain he recorded all the conversations he had stated, that he recorded every interaction he related to his assigned leads. To date, Dan Doolin has not found the audio recording of Richard Allen and his conversation in this grocery store parking lot. It's just, if these girls were my daughters, I would be so peeved about the way the Delphi Police Department handled this. I tell you, I wouldn't be sitting back the way, well, never mind. Anyway, so they arrest Richard Allen based on this statement. They use false information to get the warrants, but here nor there. The search of Richard Allen's home, his computers, his cell phone, his vehicles, turned up no evidence linking him to the two girls. Even when they did the forensics on his computers, on his cell phones, and yes, he had 18 cell phones, and yes, people make a big deal about that. But you know what? I have to say, I still have at least 7 cell phones. I keep them because I don't transfer data from one phone to another. I'm technically challenged, so I just keep the phone to keep the pictures. So, am I odd? Possibly. So, for him to have 17 cell phones or 18 or whatever it was, I don't find that odd. Some people collect old cell phones, who knows? But anyway, they found absolutely zero data or anything to link him to these two girls. Okay, they seized upon 40 caliber ammunition that was found in Richard Allen's home. There was one unspent round, remember, that was found that the police had dug out of the ground near the scene of the crime. Now, this is dubious at best, and it certainly is not evidence. Okay, there is no DNA, no blood found on his clothes. Like, they seized like his jeans and his blue jacket that's supposed to look like Bridge Guy's blue jacket. And there was no blood. Now, the amount of blood there would have been, even after years, if you washed it, chances are you might find trace blood still. Um, there was no deer pack found during the search of his home. So the 27 suspect profile the police released said the suspect was most likely left-handed. Now that they would get that idea from the way that Libby's throat, I apologize, throat was cut. Okay, that's where they'll get whether it was a left hand or a right hand. Um, Richard Allen is right-handed. Okay, we will go into more detail in the next episode, but Richard Allen's alibi is he arrived home after 1:30 p.m. and was home the afternoon evening of February 13th, 2017. Okay, this is a screenshot of a cell tower locations in Delphi. Now, apparently, there are up to 60 actual cell tower locations in and around Delphi. Okay, this one is a screenshot of what's considered the FCC registered cell phone towers in Delphi. In the US, not all cell towers are FCC registered, apparently. I know there are a lot of highly intelligent people out there that most certainly know a lot more than I do in regards to this. Being technically challenged, I suppose I look at this with a more simplistic view. So the defense has recently filed a motion in regards to the cell phone data, and rightly so, as it appears what they were given by the prosecution is what someone would categorize as a dog's breakfast. Now, in my simplistic view, there is a cell tower close to the Monon High Bridge. My question is, why the police say they could not find the girls through cell phone pings and have no data as to Libby's phone for specific location. Libby's phone was an iPhone 6 SE. My question is, why could the police not get the GPS location data from Apple? They, they were looking for two young girls. And if anybody tries to tell me that Apple wouldn't have this data, I'm suspect of that because the data is called shareholder value. That's the value of Apple's shares is data. So whether they want to admit it over at Apple or not, I'm certain they would have that data. Now, this is what the Delphi police originally released way back when. That the last ping on Libby's cell phone was at 5:30 p.m., giving the location as the area of County Road 300 North and 575 West. Latitude 40 degrees, 35, and now I may say this wrong because I'm not very good at this. 35 feet, 21.4 inches, and longitude is 86 degrees, 38 feet, 23.3 inches. Now, if the police had this GPS location data for pinging Libby's phone when the girls were first reported missing, why didn't the police go there the evening of December 13th and discover the girls? Like they released that they had this. Do you know this is the exact location that they found the girls' bodies? The exact location. So this is what I don't understand. So then that's back in 2017. Okay, so you fast forward to today, I think the defense filed the motion a month ago maybe on this cell phone data. So let's say sometime in September 2024. And according to those filings, the the cell phone data is reporting that Libby's phone, this is why the defense is confused about the data that the prosecution has given them, is because it's saying that Libby's phone pinged on the network at 9 p.m. February 13th, again at 1 a.m. February 14th, and again at 4:33 a.m. February 14th. Again, there's all these very odd occurrences going on in this case. So Very, very interesting at trial. So on the left, you see the location of Richard Allen's neighborhood. Or, sorry, in the middle of the screenshot. Top left of the screenshot is the location of the nearest cell phone tower. So, in my mind, they can determine if Richard Allen was at his home or not. They have this cell phone that he used in 2017. He still had it. That's in the police's possession. So they only need to look at the phone, call records, then compare that to the cell tower records. I mean, to me, that's an easy, like you're just talking numbers here. And the same should apply to what time was Richard Allen's phone at the Delphi Historic Trails. There are two cell towers in the area of the park where the crime occurred. Just compare the actual phone log to the cell records from these two cell towers. Top right, you see the cell tower location that Libby's phone pinged from when law enforcement were attempting to locate the girls. Okay, again, this is another odd in the case. One of the people in the search party that found the girls said he had lost his keys while searching for the girls the evening of February 13th, had to leave his truck in the cemetery parking lot the evening of the 13th through February 14th. This is the same person that touched the girls to check for a pulse, as well as the person who asked his neighbor Logan if they could search his property. Now, he asked Logan to search the property prior to finding the girls. Okay, now this person lives in a house in the woods near the crime scene. Just some food for thought. Now, on this slide, we have the police say they have a Ford Focus captured on CCTV traveling westbound on the 300 North in front of the Hoosier Harvester store at 1:27 p.m. on February 13th. The police have not provided any details in regards to this vehicle, not its color, its license plate, or which model of Ford Focus that I know of. Maybe somebody out there does, but not to my knowledge. The police and prosecution stated this is Richard Allen on his way to the CPS building parking lot, as this would fit their narrative and timeline. However, how can that be? At 1:26 p.m. on the left side of the screenshot, you see where the teenage girls see Richard Allen. At 1:26 p.m. time-stamped with the picture the teen girls took at the same time they saw Richard Allen. At the top left of the screenshot, you see the CPS parking lot where Richard Allen's car was parked. How did Richard Allen walk to his car, leaving at 1:26, drive his car eastbound along West 300 North Street, past the Hoosier Harvester's security camera, not be captured passing the camera going eastbound, turn around somewhere, come back past the Hoosier Harvester traveling westbound along West 300 North, but get captured on the Hoosier Harvester store security camera at 1:27 p.m. Now, Richard Allen cannot be in two places at once. That's impossible. And Richard Allen is only 5'6" tall, so he's not a tall man. So he doesn't have a large stride when walking or even running, you know. And he also weighed 198 pounds at the time. It would take him more than 1 minute just to walk from where the teenage girls saw him at 1:26 to the CPS parking lot where his car was parked, let alone get in it, drive eastbound, then turn around, come westbound to be captured at 1:27. Like, this is just one example of the absurd assertions by the Delphi police and the Delphi prosecutor. It's just bizarre. Like, this is why this case was never solved. This is why this case is just fraught with problems, from what appears to be corrupt Delphi police to the current judge who is prejudicial towards the defense and certainly doesn't hide the fact that she is. I don't know if this Allen chap is guilty or not, but after reading through the court record of motions, he most certainly has not been treated as he should have been, presumed innocent prior to trial. Allen has been treated like a convicted murderer, while what a proper investigator would deem potential suspects were dismissed without a thorough investigation in this case. Taped interviews with these potential suspects have vanished, along with multiple other documents of evidentiary value in this case. I wonder what the police and prosecution are hiding. Are they in hiding their incompetence in not properly investigating this crime? Or are they hiding the fact they chose to fit this Allen chap up for the crime a few days prior to an election in order to keep their jobs? Either way, it's anyone's guess what has gone on here. But whatever it isn't right. This is very sad, as these two girls deserve so much better than this from the U.S. justice system. But sadly, in the U.S., because this is not the first case this has occurred, it appears they prefer to convict the innocent rather to complete a proper investigation and actually find the guilty parties. The Delphi police have misled the public from the very beginning with false statements to the press in regards to the Bridge God video. The way the girls were found, too, there is no evidence against the current defendant, along with many other facets in the case. There is a multitude of odd characters associated with this case. They're the Odinists, there's drug dealers, there's former boyfriends of the girls, those boyfriends' fathers who are part of this cult thing. And that's quite common in the US. Believe it or not, these cults, these Odinists and all these other types of cults, they're they're common in the US. So people can, have their opinion in regards to this, but they are very real. There was a mentally challenged chap who admitted to being present when the girls were killed, to the chap who owns the property at the end of the Monon High Bridge. Well, he doesn't actually own it, his mother does, but he lives there with his family. Who the police, they confiscated his .40 caliber Sig Saucer gun back in 2018. Now, Richard Allen's gun is also a .40 caliber Sig Saucer. Now, I'm not a gun person. I live in a country, fortunately, where guns are not like they are in the U.S. But I'm going to assume this is a popular gun, a .40 caliber Sig Saucer. You got two people in one town who own it, no doubt others. Because apparently this park where the girls were found is very popular for hunting. There's a lot of those hunting hides, they call them, I think. So um, I assume that the prosecution is going to attempt to bamboozle the jury with junk science to state that an ejected round from a gun can be traced back to a specific gun. Okay, this is rubbish, and I truly hope the jury does not fall for this, as the dubious .40 caliber round found in the ground at the crime scene is questionable as to having any link with the murders of Abby and Libby. They were stabbed with a knife. Okay, I don't know what kind of knife, but a knife was used. The Delphi police did not even videotape the discovery of this .40 caliber round or the removal of the .40 caliber round from the ground. It wasn't lying on top of the ground, okay? This .40 caliber round had to be dug out of the ground. They found it with a metal detector. What puzzles me, when the Delphi police decided that this Allen chap will do, why hasn't someone traced his cell phone records to determine where his cell phone was at the various times on February 13th and February 14th? Or find Richard Allen or his vehicle on any CCTV footage that the police had showing Allen somewhere else? Like, what I mean by that is, if Richard Allen drove through town, let's say, to get back home, you know, if the police had the archive footage of the cameras along Main Street, let's say, did no one sit and watch that footage to see if they could see Richard Allen's car coming along Main Street? Like, that's just an example, but he may have went home a different way. I have no idea. But I'm just saying, I find it hard to believe that no one's done these things. You know, like, do the police even still have that footage? Or have they destroyed that footage or lost that footage? Or perhaps they never even got any CCTV footage in the first place. Who knows with this group? So, next time we'll go into more detail in the next episode, but I must say, this case is most peculiar to say the least. So please keep those thoughts in mind as I look forward to presenting our next episode. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to all your feedback. Please leave feedback in the comments section, or you are welcome to email me your feedback directly at ybentleydavidson@outlook.com. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It's free. Until next time, every day is a gift.